so when they came out with software, then I'm like, oh wow, he can do this. It was publishing, and it was all sorts of things. So that made it fun. And I had a lot of interesting adventures. I've lived in the Caribbean. I've spent a lot of time in Central America, south of Spain, Paris. So, you know, I'm one of those people that I'm sitting in a bar having a drink, but I'm not just sitting in a bar having a drink. I'm actually meeting characters. They just don't know it. And often the characters, exactly, and often the characters that you read about in my books are combinations of people that I've met. There might have been 3 of them. I made them into like one character. My lawyer says I got to say it. But at any rate, that's kind of where I get the ideas. And then my books are Roman plus, which are fictional books in which there are actual non-fictional characters. And the best example in one of my favorite books that I can think of is the one by, oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought. It's, the Count of Monte Cristo. And there really was, or the Three Musketeers for that matter, there really was Cardinal Richelieu. There really was Louis XIV. But they actually play a character role in the book. And so those are Roman classics. And so there are characters in my books that actually exist as well. All locations are real. If you've been to these places, you'll recognize some of the mentions. If you haven't been, they act as well as a travel guide. That, oh gosh, we should go back and flip through that book. If we're going to St. Thomas, let's flip through the book and see if we can get some of those places there. So I try to do that as well. And then there's a mix of, it's fiction, but it's also nonfiction. And I do this through the storyline. And I want you to try to decide where the fiction stops and the truth begins and vice versa. And I never tell you because what one person's perception is may be different than another. So there's a lot of guessing going on as you go through the story. And then I'm going to steal this line from our listeners. She mentioned this about my book, and I just thought it was a wonderful, my books, and I thought it was a wonderful line. It was that they come in layers. And you can take them as a beach read. You can go to the beach, read it in 4 or 8 hours, depending on your reading speed, and have a little espionage conspiracy adventure, and be done with it. Or you can look between the lines, read between the lines, etc., and it goes in layers. And there's like the 4th layer can be pretty complicated. And that was a great explanation that Lynn said to me one time, and I really appreciate it. And I told her I'd steal the line. I don't know if she believed me or not.
I did, but I just didn't think you'd do it in my own house.
All right. So let's see where we are. Character names. And I got this idea from Ian Fleming. I had to hide Ian Fleming books from my mother because they were obscene. And I was like 7th grade or 8th grade. But he had all of his character names, or many of them, not all of them, meant something. They weren't just names. And so my names do as well. Even like the name of a boat might have another meaning. So like in one book, the name of the boat is peligroso, which is Spanish for dangerous. So, that's kind of like a lead into what might be coming. But you got to catch it. And so that's those layers that we were talking about. And I'm going to give you some examples of these, and not to ruin the storylines or anything, but just to give you an idea. Like there's one guy named Senor Cuchillo, which is Spanish for knife. Not to say anything more, okay? Yeah. And then Poco Muerte, which is slang for little death, but also orgasm. And it's like sneezing, they take. and he's a former Navy SEAL, and he's like 5'2". So he's a little deaf, but he's also the little deaf. So there's a little play in there too. Aziza, which is an Arabic name, it means strong, powerful, beloved. And then Baciare, which is Italian, means to kiss. So there's one character whose last name is to kiss. interesting. So, and that may, yeah, I know that may go past you if you're not paying attention. So that gives you an idea. So let me go through each book for you, and very generally, and then I'll take questions. Anything else I can do to help you if you want. The first one is called in the series. There's a series of 4, and then there's an additional 5th, which is not part of the series. In the first one, Try Not to Die in the Tropics, I had a day like that. And I was like far from home and all alone, and you know how that goes. And I'm thinking, man, I just don't want to die in the tropics. And it really, it's the title of the book, but it didn't have anything to do with that particular day. But I just thought that's how I was feeling that day, and I liked the title. So, and I do exactly what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to write the book and then title. And what I do is I come up with a title. And the title to me means everything. And then the title drives the story. So you're like, Try Not to Die in the Tropics. Okay, now you have, and when you write a book, you have like an outline. And so you write down the characters. This guy is a greedy shop owner, and this is a bad cop, and this is an intelligence officer, and so forth. And then you give them their personalities. And then you write the overall outline, what the story's going to do. And it might only be a couple of paragraphs. But that leads you. And then sometimes while you're sitting at the keyboard and your fingers are flying, you can't write fast enough. In fact, you write too fast, and you have to go back and fix the errors because you're like this. And then there's days you're staring at the screen, and it could be, very frustrating. But to talk about Try Not to Die in the Tropics, the gist of it is, when I was a young man, JFK was assassinated, and it struck me greatly. And I was like one of those kids that loved the library. First of all, it was air conditioned. And then there were like smart, cute girls. So, I had 2 reasons to be there if you don't even count the books. So I'd hang out there, and I read like the Warren Commission report when I was like 15. And then I read, the additional ones they had afterwards, the Senate hearing and the House hearing on the assassination. So I'm a big JFK buff. So the gist of Trying Not to Die in the Tropics is that the person knows more than he should know about the JFK assassination, and former people who would rather that information stay quiet pursue him. And he runs from all these exotic locales and that sort of thing. And then he says, I got it. I'll go to Hilton Head. Well, I can tell you, Hilton Head's not a good place to hide. It's like going to Las Vegas. If you go to Las Vegas, you're on camera like 24/7, except for your actual hotel room. So it's not a good place to hide. And that's the overall, picture.